Yeah, let the big dog. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Kallas Remarks with your host, Joe Staszak, co-host Steve Kallas. How you doing, my friend?
All good, Joe. I apologize for the lighting, but other than that, ready to go. Great to
No,
be with you as always.
you too. I apologize for the voice, so we cancel each other out there. I'm struggling a little bit today, but I got a boost last night. I love my hockey playoffs, back-to-back overtime games. I thought Florida might have let it slip away in game one. They exacted a little revenge in game two. We'll get to that in a minute. The bigger story, the Pacers, my Pacers.
That's right. You
They're
picked
not
them.
they're not my Pacers. I just like the way that they're resilient and they're tall and they hit three-point shots a lot. And I like the way they play down the stretch. I don't love 25 turnovers leading up to that point. But when I saw that game in Oklahoma City Thunder, how they weren't really taking advantage of it early, I'm like, this is only a 12, 13, 14. It was like, it was to me, it was a terrible game. And then I'm watching down the stretch and on the next 15 on that breakaway dunk, and then here they come, here they come, here they come. And I thought Nemhard really owned the fourth quarter, and he was very efficient. He hit that bomb 26 three-pointer to cut the lead to three that didn't even touch the net. And then, of course, Tyrese Halliburton, he had the best defender on the planet on him, and he kind of, I don't know how he got so much separation, but he 4 for 4 in shots under 2 seconds left in these playoffs. You can't say enough about him.
It's hard to believe, but I will say this, a 15-point lead, a 20-point lead ain't what it used to be.
Not what he used to be, right?
It's almost routine now. Well, back in now, before the three, if you were down 20, you were down. If you were
You're
down,
done.
it's the difference in the game, which we can debate another time whether that's good or not for basketball. But Halliburton is already one of the greatest clutch shooters who ever lived. I agree with the Brunson finding of clutch player, and they have statistics on that now. But this guy in a big spot, I mean, my goodness, it's just incredible what he's done. You got to give him credit. And you're right, Dort is a great defender, but he just had him leaning back a little bit. And that's all he needed. He didn't have to hit a three either, as you'll recall, that was inside the 3-point line. And he just took his jumper, but he makes these look so easy. Um, but again, OKC, they've blown leads before. The Pacers are good at, coming back from being down. They seem to be down almost all the time.
They're a 10-point dog again tomorrow.
Yeah, I saw that, and I'm like, really? I'm not, again not a gambling man, but if you're going to empty it, I don't know how they're going to beat them by 11. I'm just not seeing that based on what we've seen.
I wouldn't play that. No, I wouldn't play that side of it. No, of course not. But these games go, you turn them on, like that's like, okay, they lost by 40 tonight. And then they win the next day. Oh, they lost by 30. It was like ridiculous. So who knows? That's why,
Well, this will aid your selection. In the history of the NBA, the team that won game one in a 7-game final has won 71% of the time.
really, that's a lot.
That's a big, I don't
Big
know.
swing. That game one is tough.
Yeah. And
Losing
of
that.
course, of course, give them credit on the road. And don't forget Siakam. I thought he was the MVP so far for the whole playoffs. I'd have to put Halliburton as MVP now because he's made tying 4 game tying or go ahead field goals in the final 5 seconds of the fourth quarter or overtime. I mean, that's
That-
just an unbelievable number. And people who are saying he's not a superstar, they're bringing up Robert Ory. Now, who doesn't like Robert Ory? He did hit some incredible
Big shot,
shots,
Bob. That's fine.
but I'd say he was kind of left alone at times until he became big
It
shot.
was. It's
Bob.
fine.
Because
Hey, call
whereas
me a cab.
Halliburton.
Call me what you want. It doesn't matter. He gets the job done.
Exactly. So
He-
they're looking for Halliburton to make the big plays, and here's a newsflash: he almost always makes the big plays.
How about
But you
someone
got
cover
see
him? Maybe double cover him, and I don't know.
maybe you got Siakam, 19 points, 10 rebounds. He's that steady guy who played great against the
Great.
Knicks, and I thought deserved the Eastern that series Eastern Conference
Yeah.
Finals MVP. But right now, you got to give Halliburton something. I mean, he didn't have a good game, 14 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists. But despite that, ball's in his hands at the end. You saw they were just looking to give it to him the last 5 seconds or whatever it was. And he got the shot off, left him 0.3, which is a virtual impossibility. And
Possibility.
that turned out to be an impossibility. So I'll still go with OKC, but I give you credit. I think the Pacers were like plus 525 or something to
It
win
was
the.
really ridiculous to win $100. You had to pay like what? Really
So
ridiculous.
I still think OKC can come back. This has been kind of their, for better or worse, mainly
Sure.
for worse, kind of been their modus operandi where they would just you go, what is this? And then their defense breaks out and they win 2 games or they win by
Right.
40.
Yeah.
I mean, SGA, 38 points, 5 assists,
For
three steals.
38 points, so let me ask you this: on 30 shots, is that efficient?
That's
And
efficient.
he had an 8 foot mid range to win the game, and he kind of clunked it, and that's why
Yeah,
Tyler
well, that was the problem. That would have put him up three, and then Halliburton would have had to have taken the three. But that was a shot he seems to make,
all the
80% of
time.
the time. But got to give the Pacers credit. They're tough late. They got a good coach. They got a coach who actually won a championship. Because if we talk about Tibbs
Or
soon,
no,
going to talk about that. But you got to give the Pacers a lot of credit. I'll still go with OC, and that's not a newsflash, especially if you tell me they're favored. They're favored by 10
10 points again.
in game two after losing game one at home in overtime. That's a tough one for me to
That's
understand.
amazing. Well, the Pacers did the same thing to the Knicks. We talked about that bounce, the ball that bounced up high. It was a 2-pointer in game one. Of course, they won game two at Madison Square Garden. Newsflash: Tom Thibodeau no longer the coach, and that decision was probably made. If they lose this series, he's gone because they didn't take any time to think about it. He was gone. Tom Thibodeau no longer the coach after 5 years, despite taking the Knicks to places they haven't been since the 70s. So there's a lot of candidates out there, and Mike Malone's out there. He's the only one, I think, who's won a championship that's among the names. But what are your thoughts on a new hire for the Knickerbockers?
I think it's dumb to get rid of Thibodeau now. I understand. First of all, he's kind of an old timer. He's a tougher
Old
guy.
school.
And he refused, the big knock on him. It's been the same where he was before because he plays the starters so much. He doesn't think he has a deep team. And then he was forced, frankly, to play the subs. And then, you
They
had
played okay, and he's like, all right, maybe I'll play them some more.
right. So that's a late time to experiment. But
A little bit. It's a little bit not knowing your team, isn't it?
yeah, well, again, I think he's the guy. Remember, it was wasn't it our guy who complained about the minutes, Bridges? Didn't he complain about the mid?
Yeah, that was him.
Forget this. He complained publicly and told Thibodeau, and the word got out. And then the next game was an overtime game,
Played like 59 minutes.
and Bridges played into the mid or high 40s, and hit the game-winning shot, by the way. So maybe Tibbs is saying to himself, "Well, that worked."
That
So,
works. So what are you
but
talking about?
he certainly relies on older players rather than younger players, and players he's coached, rather than players he hasn't coached. But remember Brunson right after the game, he mocked the guy who said, "So, do you think Thibodeau is the guy to get you guys?" Bridges Brunson said, "I think we have a championship team here." And then the guy asked him, "What about the coach?" And he said, "Are you asking me if Thibodeau is the coach?" And he looked at him like he was out of his mind. And he said, "Yes, Thibodeau is the coach." But then, a day or 2 days later, or 3 days later, whatever it was, I thought it was kind of Bush League. And I think the only way they win a championship is the Johnny Kallas way, if somehow the Greek freak wants out. But as people have pointed out, they gave up what they gave up 5 number 1 picks for Bridges. So
Five.
what are they going to have to give for
That's
Thibodeau? I
that's
mean, for the Greek freak, what are they going to?
who authorized that transaction? I mean, I love Mikal Bridges. He does a lot of really 5 number 1 picks. Look,
They what?
Luca got nothing. Luca got what? He got Anthony Davis, and you give him 5 number 1 picks from Mikal Bridges.
It's incredible.
But I agree with Johnny though. I think they need it's the players. I don't think it's going to be a new coach. I think
Yeah, I
it's gonna
agree
be
with
they
that. But
need,
the names you hear, Mark Jackson, who I like,
yeah,
former Nick,
sure.
coach Golden State before they were Golden State,
Yeah,
said that backcourt was the greatest shooting backcourt of all time, which has worked out to probably be true. And but they won 4 titles after he left. I don't know if he's Buck Showalter leaving, they win, but
right.
he apparently had something too bad because I think Mark Jackson is a very good coach. But to bring him back to coach the Knicks, I'm just not sure if he's the guy. Rick Brunson, I don't know. You're going to hire your star's dad to
Yeah, I
be
don't know about that. I don't know.
possibility,
Yeah,
possibility. And then there have been other names kicked around. Um, Mike Brown, who's a good coach. But again, of all these guys, any guys that I've heard named, and I've already heard 8, 10 names, only one has won a championship. And you can tell me Mike Malone had the best player. Michael Malone had the best player in basketball, and you're right, but he still won the championship. And he's a tough old timer too. He might not fit the way the Knicks want to go. I don't know if the Knicks want to have one of these softer guys, but Michael Malone has said, I don't think my team gave much effort today. And that's not something you say in the press conference after the game, in my opinion. You say it in the locker room. So it's going to be interesting, but I think they should offer the job to Michael Malone. I don't know that this group will. And to send Tibbs out, he just signed a 3-year extension, by the way, so Tibbs can do whatever he wants. He's going to get all the money he wants for 2 years.
Getting
He
paid.
won't take another job unless he thinks he can win a championship, I think. And maybe he goes and does TV like Michael Malone is doing right now
Well,
with ESPN.
guess what? I think Johnny's right. It's really not about the coach. It's gonna be about the players. If they get under the Cupo or something like that, and kind of, and they tried to get they brought Cat in and she Dante DiVincenzo off, Mikal Bridge. I thought those were nice moves. I think Johnny's right. They need to take a step to get over the hump. And the hump was to get over the Celtics, but then again, you ran into a hot Pacers team. They're not an elite team yet. And I don't think a coach is going to make a difference, but we'll keep an eye on it. But good stuff so far, man. And then we got the NHL. I mean, back-to-back overtime. Was it Christmas already? I mean, what? Where's Santa? It was phenomenal both nights. I thought Florida screwed themselves, screwed the pooch on game one. They had a 3-1 lead. And they turned into that Florida team. I talk about like the Celtics, they'll take a period off, a night off, whatever. And they let Edmonton get back in the game. They won in overtime. They let Drysdale score in the first minute. And Connor McDavid, you give him some space. I don't know if you saw the goal last night that
I,
McDavid set up.
I did. It's unbelievable.
Just insane. Just insane. But then last night again, they give up. I got down in the late 2-2 with 7 minutes left in the first. I'm like, oh, what are they doing? Bob's giving up 2 goals in the first period. So they end up getting the lead back. They settled down at the end of the second period. Even Gretz pointed out. Gretz looked like he didn't look like the great one. He looked like the late one. He needed to go to bed. Like Gretzky can't hang out for overtime. His hair was all, I don't know if you saw him in overtime.
I did, yeah.
So, but he did mention at the end of the second period, it was like a 6 minute window where Florida just flipped that switch. Edmonton had nothing. They were gassed. It was a 2 minute and 15 second shift. They were lucky they got off the ice. Florida had a lead. They had a goal lead late. And I also agree with them. Icing becomes lazy in the last minute. Use your board, make it soft. You don't have to throw it down the ice. They iced it. Face-off came back in their own zone, and Edmonton scored because they couldn't get the puck out of zone. Got lucky because they got 38-year-old. There was a 37-year-old Brad Marchand from the Bruins. I mean, what a pickup at the trade deadline. 2 goals last night, shorty. And there were three overtime. There were three breakaways last night. Where's the defense? How often do you see that kind of open ice breakaway? The other one, I forget who it was, took a shot way too early. But Marchand had 2 breakaways, scored on both between Skinner's legs. It was just phenomenal theater because if Florida loses that game, they're in some serious trouble. I think they are the better team watching them play, when they step up and flip that switch. But when they don't and they kind of like ease up a little bit and you lose sight of 97, you got problems.
Yeah, I want to go back to game one just briefly. Draisaitl scores at 106 left, 106 into the game, and then he scores to win the game with 31 seconds left in the first overtime. He's got 3 overtime goals in this postseason, which is pretty incredible when
That's
you think
great.
about it. And here's a stat I didn't know, maybe you did. Until this game, Paul Maurice in the playoffs, coaching Florida, was 31-0 if they had the lead at the end of the first or second period. And not only did they have the lead, they had a 2-goal lead. So it's
Yeah.
very unlike the Panthers. So the Oilers win that one, but then we come to this one, the game two, and again, Draisaitl, of course, had a goal, but Panthers win. It's everything you said about Marchand is true and better. They got plenty of guys who won the cup, but Marchand, who's been in the league forever, and he's got the cup in Boston many years ago. He's looking for another cup.
2011. Dude, that was
And,
13 years
and
ago.
and one of them was a shorty, as you said. He's now got 7 goals in the
Okay.
playoffs. And this was his fifth playoff overtime game-winning goal. And these are really precious things because when you narrow it down to that, to me anyway, it means a lot. Another Paul Maurice stat, he's 5-0 in Panthers in the playoffs. In Panthers, when they play an overtime game following a loss, they've happened
How
5 times
about that? Wow.
and they're 5-0. But I do want to go off on a little tangent, although I do want to mention Corey Perry, 40 years old, ties the game with 18 seconds left to give the Oilers a chance. But here's what they said. The latest, they put up this stat on ESPN. It's the latest Stanley Cup final goal ever to force overtime, which is what happened in this game. But it broke the record of a guy named Todd Sloan, scored 32 seconds left in 1951 game 5. So you go, who cares about
That's
Todd
it, really?
Sloan? Fuck,
Okay.
it happened. In 1951, the Maple Leafs beat the Canadiens with Rocket Richard, beat them in 5. This was the fifth game. All five of those games went to overtime.
It's overtime. I
So if
know. I
you're
saw
ever
that.
talking about trying to meet something, I don't know if anybody's ever going to play five straight overtime goals, but I just wanted to mention this thing. So it was Todd Sloan's second goal of the game, and it tied up the game. But I want to talk briefly about a guy who you may have heard of, who I know I've heard of because he scored the game-winning goal in that game in overtime, game five. The Leafs beat the Canadiens 4-1. Okay, 4 games to 1. The guy who scored the winning goal was a guy named Bill Barilko, who all I knew about him is that he scored a goal to win a Stanley Cup. So I go back and look at him, and that was on April 21st, 1951. Barilko had been in the league 5 years. 4 months later, he died in a plane crash. And the Maple Leafs retired his number 5. But I went back and looked at him. The guy was a defenseman, first of all, and he won 4 cups in his 5 years there, including 51 when he won the game. So
Wow.
this guy is like an incredible player that nobody really knows about. But it was really kind of sad. He was also, I think he made the All-Star team his first 3 years or something. This is a guy with an incredibly bright future who just died. He went with his dentist on a fishing trip, and the dentist had a private thing. And again,
That's what
nobody
happened.
knows this stuff. I just found it fascinating because all I knew about Barilko is probably what we should know at least. He scored a goal to win the Stanley Cup. It was game five, not game seven, so maybe not as incredible. But this guy was an incredible player who won 4 cups in 5 years, made the All-Star team 3 times, and won the Stanley Cup. And again, they did retire his number. And the Maple Leafs, way back when, I don't know how many they have up there in the rafters now because they haven't won anything forever, as you
Mhm.
know. But he was an incredible player, and I got to tell you, I didn't really know that. But again, going back to the game itself, all credit to the Panthers because you're right. Now it's 1-1. They've stolen home ice advantage or whatever you want to
They play
call it.
better on the road anyway. They do.
Yeah,
They play much
I
better on
still
the
like
road.
the Oilers because I think, and you talked about the move when they asked, I think it was Steve Levy after the game covering it on ESPN. He said, "Yeah, McDavid did this," and they showed the move in slow motion. It's just incredible. And he goes, "I think he's the only guy in hockey who could do that." And
Except
Kevin
for the guy,
Weeks,
except for the guy on the desk,
oh,
99.
no,
I
that's
never seen
true.
99 even do something. That was silly. Like these guys
Yeah,
are pro defensemen. These guys are the best defensemen on the planet, and he's doing
correct.
the stuff he do in Pee Wee.
Exactly right. So that's a fascinating series to watch. And now that it's 1-1, and I think the Pacers, by winning, obviously, in the way they won, now say, well, that's a series too, no matter what the point spread is for game
Right.
two. I
It'll
don't
give it a
think.
little bit of, yeah, exactly. They'll panache going into game two, and that game is tomorrow, actually, 8 o'clock tomorrow night
Yeah.
on ABC. All right. So, little football. You know, it's Aaron Rodgers season, I guess. Like, if I'm a Pittsburgh Steeler, I'm not getting all excited about Aaron Rodgers coming to my team. I guess I'm a little bit more excited than Mason Rudolph slinging it for my team. But if that's my answer, I got problems. That's just me. What do you think? Aaron Rodgers has decided he's going to play for the Steelers. Flies in yesterday, maybe. He's going to sign a contract, 1 year deal. Didn't have a great
Yep.
time with the
Yep.
Jets, although they do open with the Jets. Um,
Hysterical.
and they got rid of Pickens. I know they picked up DK Metcalf, but what are we doing in Pittsburgh?
Well, I think it was the best of not a good situation because Mason Rudolph isn't the answer. It's interesting. I saw Mina Kimes on NFL Live, who we love, and she was like, "Yeah, but I think he's just an average quarterback." But the interesting thing is, and she even said, because this is what she can do that even the players don't do, is he's great throwing the deep ball. He's not very good throwing the ball between 10 and 20 yards. And of course, that's everybody's bread and butter. How many of the passes in football go between 10 and 20 yards? Plenty of them. And but I will say this, a few things about Aaron Rodgers. He threw 584 passes last year. I didn't know that. So that's second in the
A
league.
lot.
And he didn't have an offensive line. And he has, I think, some mobility, but not the mobility he used to have. Plus, now it's a year away from a torn Achilles, so maybe that's even a little stronger. And I think I know the O line for the Steelers is better than the O line for the Jets. So there's some positives there. If he had Pickens and DK Metcalf, I'd be happier if I was a Steelers fan, which I'm not. But I think I'd love to know what they're paying him, and maybe that'll get out eventually. But so far, nobody knows. And I guess it doesn't really matter. It's a 1 year deal. He doesn't need money. And I think he wants to come back and prove because 2 years ago he played 4 plays or whatever that was. Last year, his rankings aren't good. And again, as they put up on NFL Live on ESPN, The year before in Green Bay, he was terrible. But the 2 years before that, he was the MVP.
MVP.
Now, can he get that back? I don't think he can get that back. But do I think he's going to be better than Mason Rudolph? Yeah. Do I think he can play well enough with the Steelers, who are a good all-around team? I think with a pretty good rushing game. I think they can make the playoffs, and I think they only make the playoffs if Aaron Rodgers is their quarterback. Because if Mason Rudolph is your quarterback, what are you going to do? You're going to put 8 in the box, and they only have one top receiver now that, as you said, Pickens is gone.
Yeah, I think that's like Aaron Rodgers wants to throw the ball. He's not going to Pittsburgh to hand the ball out. And Tom, Pittsburgh's tough, ground and pound, Najee Harris, blah blah blah. It's going to be a little bit of an interesting situation. But if I have Aaron Rodgers and I have that, he still has the arm. Listen, I
Yeah,
watch games and I know his numbers. They were better than maybe people think, but a lot of them came like late, fourth quarter. His numbers
garbage
in the fourth
time.
quarter because he was down. The team was down. The team was terrible. But he can still sling it. I mean, he hasn't. It's not like Peyton Manning in the Super Bowl where he can't throw like a 25-yard out. He can still sling it. Actually, he's bouncing around. He played 4 plays that 1 year with the Jets, like you mentioned 2 years ago. The whole thing was a mess last year. Now he's going to a very new team. If I was him, I would have shown up early. Ingratiate yourself to the
I
players, blah
agree.
blah blah. You know what I mean? Like you're the guy now. The quarterback's always the guy. By definition, you're the guy. Be the guy. I mean, you can do what you want, but it's, the optics of it is just like, okay, here we go. Like, I'm kind of Aaron Rodgers fatigued a little bit, but it makes it interesting to see, all right,
I
throw him
agree.
out there. Let's see how you guys do.
Yep.
Let's see what you guys do. So we'll get into that more as OTAs continue. We got a few more minutes here. You want to talk about baseball? But Paul Skenes the last few games, he's dealing, but not getting it done on the stat sheet.
Just a little baseball about certainly the two best young pitchers in baseball and maybe the two best pitchers in baseball. But Skeens became the first pitcher since 2000. Now we know if you come out for the seventh or eighth inning now, it's like you're almost a hero if you're a starting pitcher. But Skeens is now, he's the first pitcher since 2000, so 25 years ago, to pitch 8 innings, 3 consecutive games, and lose all 3 games. I mean, they can't score runs for him. He's still a stud pitcher.
Stud
Uh,
pitcher.
But I think he's going to get tired of these kinds of games very quickly. So will the Pirates trade him? The Pirates say no. The Pirates say no. But at some point, I don't know what Skeens does, unless, as you pointed out, I'm not saying he's Mike Trout yet as a pitcher, but he could be Mike Trout eventually as a pitcher. And Trout just decided to stay with the Angels when he said it. We thought he might go to Philly. He's a Jersey guy, right? And he didn't. And we were like, doesn't this guy want to win a
Oh,
championship?
man, yeah.
And I guess he'd say, yeah, I do. But they couldn't do anything with Otani, and now they don't have Otani. And of course, you see what Otani's doing with the Dodgers
Right.
in Los Angeles to boot. So I don't know. I hope Skeen's future is on a better team, but that's incredible. But the guy I did want to talk about who now is on a better team is Tariq Skubal, who now in his last 23 and two-thirds innings has given up 1 earned run, no walks, and 26 strikeouts. His strikeout to walk ratio is 15-1. That's like an all-time high if he keeps it up, and it looks like he will keep it out because he's got incredible control. Now he's playing on a Tigers team that's 42 and 23, and the only thing I don't like is Hinch is getting so much credit, and he deserves credit, don't get me wrong, but you know me, I'll never forget the cheating Astros. And his thing was, well, I'm not sure, I didn't know. And then you find out he broke two of the big TVs they had in the I think in the not in the dressing room. I think it might have been in the dugout. I'm not sure. But he broke two of them. He knew full well what was going on. He took his 1 year suspension, and now, maybe you could say that's enough. But look, I gotta give him credit. The Tigers are 42 and 23. I think Scoopel is probably the best pitcher in the American League. At least right now he is. He's 6-2. And I agree with the guys who say, well, record doesn't really mean that much. And that Skeens is the perfect example, 0-3, 0-3, with giving up like no runs in 24 innings. But still, there's something about a win. It's not totally
I get
irrelevant.
it. I do get it. I mean,
And
you go out
so,
there for 8 innings and pitch like Skeens has. He's not a fluke. He's a rookie of the year. He's
right,
number 1 pick overall. Went to Air
right.
Force. I did a
So
whole
my
thing. I
my
did.
suggestion to young pitchers is if you see on your TV Scoopel is going to pitch or Keynes is going to pitch, go watch them. Go
He's not.
watch them.
He's.
They're not Maddox. They're not Maddox. In the old days, I would tell kids, go watch Maddox because he didn't throw. He threw pretty hard when he started, but his last 5 years, he was, I don't want
Right.
to say junk pitcher, but he
Young
was,
pitcher.
he always
Movement,
got the
movement.
outside. He always got the outside of the
Yeah,
plate
he
from
always did.
players. Um, but you got to watch these guys because they're separate and apart from young players. I mean, these two guys are incredible pitchers in a league where they want, what do they want? The long ball. They want the
Long
home
ball.
run. They want the launch angle, and they're getting it.
I did a whole thing. I researched, and I used him as part of my ad campaign for my company. He warms up for 2 hours. Warms up. His trainers is a certain way. And he's just, and he went to Air Force. I covered Air Force when I was a sideline reporter for the Mountain West Network. Those kids aren't taking days off. They're not taking minutes off. From the time they get up, and it's like 5:30 a.m. They're doing. And so you're put in pressure situations all the time. You might be in class. Next minute you're jumping out of a plane. Next minute you're playing baseball. He was well ready for his start in the Major League Baseball when they picked him number one, and then he just cruised to the league. But he's in nowhere land in Pittsburgh, wherever he is. You know what I mean? Like on a
I do.
day-to-day basis, you got to think at some point we need to bulk up our roster, and this is our ticket, Paul Skenes. So it's a shame because these small market teams they land a gem, and he is a gem. What are you going to do with a pitcher? He can't even get wins. You know what I mean? And he's throwing 20, 24 innings of three-run baseball. Good stuff, my friend. You got to go. You can get Steve's stuff on a daily Facebook forum page, Speaking of Sports with Steve Kallas. Also, his videos on WestchesterCountyPost.com. This podcast on YouTube every day, about Friday morning, usually, sometimes Saturday. During the football season, we do one on Friday. Also do one on Tuesday after the Monday night game to recap the events of the NFL weekend. Like follow me on Twitter at JoeStaszak975 or on Instagram at JoeStaszak4799. Great stuff, Steven. Good to see you, man. Enjoy the game. Well, there's actually no games tonight, believe it or not. On a Saturday night.
Terrible.
Terrible. What is that? No games tonight. NBA resumes tomorrow night. Hockey back in, well, it's not in, I love how they say, oh, welcome to South Beach. Now, South Beach is like a half hour that way, all right? They play here, whatever. Anyway, anyway, sorry, that's one of my things. That's Monday night in Florida as hockey resumes. Good stuff, bro. Catch you next
Always,
time.
always a pleasure, Joe.
You too, folks. Have a nice one and be safe and enjoy your weekend.